Formula One fans, and welcome back to the Formula One News Hour podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Steele. Great to be with you. This week we're going to have, like last week, we're going to have our history, and then we'll have practice Friday and qualifying Saturday, and of course the Dutch Grand Prix on Sunday. But let's get right in and start off by thanking our sponsors. Our sponsors this week are the same as last week. Good to have them back again. It is Give Send Go, Cloud Hub, Phenology, L American, Inform America, Moms for Liberty, and Off the Press. So thank you to all those folks for chipping in and sponsoring this news hour each week. Obviously we hope to gain more and different and varied sponsors as each week goes by. But anyway, let's get straight in. I mean, this week's history segment is brought to you by Phenology. These cars generate a lot of data, and businesses generate a lot of data, and you got to have somewhere to store all that data. And what better place than a privately owned data center in Austin, Texas, Phenology. Phenology provides public cloud, private cloud, co-location, and disaster recovery services. So if you've got a website you need hosting, if you've got a game you want to develop, if you've got an office that you want hosted into a private cloud, Phenology is your place to go. That is Phenology.com. Let me repeat that, Phenology.com. So as I mentioned last week, our history was on Jim Clark last week, probably in a lot of people's opinion, mine included, the greatest Formula One driver of all time. And just as a little bit of tidbit this week, who is the only Formula One driver to have won the Dutch Grand Prix 4 times? That is correct, Jim Clark. Okay, now then, whose car was Jim Clark driving when he won those 4 Dutch Grand Prix? Lotus. So our history this week is on the Team Lotus, and more specifically, the man behind Team Lotus, Colin Chapman. Colin Chapman, in my opinion, is a genius of genius for all ages, especially when it comes to automotive engineering. Although he was not a quote-unquote automotive engineer. Lots of folks think he was a civil engineer. He actually got a degree a year after moving out of college and then going back and getting a degree in mechanical engineering, which is very close to my heart, being a mechanical engineer. Colin was born on December the 28th in 1928. He was the son of a publican. His father owned a small hotel, or actually quite a large hotel, medium-sized hotel, and was the local pub. So he grew up with a businessman father. Unfortunately, he died on December the 16th, 1982 of a heart attack. But Colin left behind a lot of really neat stuff, including, of course, Lotus cars. Lotus is very often thought of as a gentleman's sports car. But let me tell you, after having driven one, and I drove one of the Lotus Esprits back in the 80s, it was an incredible car. Once that car got up to like 70, 80 miles an hour and 100, I mean, that car just started sucking down onto the road like it never wanted to leave it. It was an unbelievable car to drive. Now, it was an unbelievable car to drive, but unfortunately Lotus had a bad reputation for reliability and maintenance and stuff like that. But let's look at what Colin Chapman did for the automotive world, and more probably importantly than the racing world, because there's many of Colin Chapman's inventions, ideas, perfections that are still in effect today. The monocoque body style, chassis style I should say, is a good example of that. He introduced that in the late 60s. And that's really the molding of the chassis and the body and everything all into one. In the early days, he did it in steel, and then he moved to aluminium. His first job, in fact, was he worked for British Aluminium, and he had the foresight to believe that aluminium could be a good structural material for building cars and other things. So he was working in the industrial world, and in the side he started Lotus cars. In fact, his first car that he built was what we call an upgraded Austin 7 to become the first Lotus. Many people believe that Lotus was named after his nickname for his wife. I reached out to his son, Clive. Have not heard back, but in all honesty, I didn't reach out to him until Monday or Tuesday of this week, and I'm recording this on Friday, right after the practice sessions. So, but anyway, many believe that the Lotus name came from his nickname for his wife. He went on and he started developing, more and more Lotus cars, kind of as a pastime, because he was still working at British Aluminium. But after a couple of years, he found that he could sell these things and make money, and make enough money to live on. Now, an interesting tidbit about Colin Chapman is he was not a great planner. In fact, he didn't really plan at all. Every day he woke up and there was a whole new day, and new things came to his mind, and he just did them. Let's face it, he was very, very, very successful. If you go to your local mechanic shop these days and ask them to put in a pair of Chapman struts, they're going to say, oh, this guy wants the rear struts on his car replaced. Colin Chapman introduced those struts in the early 60s into his race cars, and then he put them into his Lotus Elite and Lotus Elan, and later on the Esprit, and they've become a permanent fixture. McPherson, everybody recognizes, is the front struts. Well, you go to your mechanic and ask him to put in some new Chapman struts, he's going to put in the rear struts for you. So another well thought out invention that is still playing a big part today in everyday automotive world. Back in the 60s, a lot of folks like me especially were just automotive fanatics and everything. We lived and breathed cars, just because that was the thing to do back then. That's about the best pastime you could have. It was over here in the United States, it was the coming of age for the muscle cars in the 70s and late 70s. So cars were a big part of younger people's lives back then. So let's look at some other things that Colin Chapman did. He did the monocoque chassis, and he did the struts. The other thing that he did was he was really the pioneer of 4 valves per cylinder for engines. Most of your cars today come with 4 valves per cylinder. Now, he wasn't the first. Back in 19 or 1921, the folks at Lancia, the Italian car company, had actually thought of that, but couldn't really perfect it. But it was it was in the early 60s that Colin Chapman did 2 things. He took a regular inline 4-cylinder Ford engine, and he equipped it with overhead cams and 4 valves per cylinder, and got a tremendous amount of power out of that. Now, on his racing cars, he used the Ford Cosworth engine, which was the brainchild of 2 American guys that combined their names and came up with the Cosworth engine. But if you look at all the pictures and you look at all of the things in history on the Lotus, you'll see that they ran the Cosworth engine, Ford Cosworth engine, on a lot of their cars. They experimented with the bigger engines, the BRM, V16. They experimented with V12s. But at the end of the day, those engines proved too big and too powerful for the chassis, not the chassis, but the gearboxes and things like that at the time. They were just too big and too heavy. Colin Chapman had a mantra. His mantra was simplify and make it light. Because he believed that, yes, the big heavy cars could go down the straightaway much faster than he could. But he would catch them in the corners, take a head in the corners, and they weren't, although they were much faster, they weren't that much faster. So he was able, the Lotus was able, and why it won so many races in the 60s. Remember, he won 6 constructors championships with the Lotus, and between drivers, his drivers. No, let me correct myself. He won 7 constructors championships, and drivers won 6. Of course, Jim Clark won to Graham Hill. We talked about him a little bit last week, and he'll be on one of our history sessions. Won a couple. Mario Andretti, the American racing driver that won Formula One and unfortunately never managed to win the Indy 500. I watched him come in second a couple of times. And at one race, I think it's probably back in 1982, it looked like Andretti was going to win the race when Danny Sullivan spun out, and Andretti was in second place right behind him. And, as he said after the race, he came in second. He said after the race, what can you do? There's no telling for, good luck. I mean, it was just really good on Danny Sullivan's part. He was going around the curve, and his tires hit the white line. He spun out, did a 360, kept right on going, and went on and won the race. But so the other driver that Colin Chapman Lotus cars was successful with was Jochen Rindt. And as I mentioned in my last podcast, back then the cars were not reliable and they crashed a lot. And the year that Jim Clark died, there's something like 126 other drivers that lost their lives. And so there's a letter from Jochen Rindt to Colin Chapman that said, I'm at the point where this car is just too dangerous to drive. I cannot get in this car and feel good and feel safe about driving it. And unfortunately, he was killed the very next day in a Lotus car. That was one knock on Colin Chapman's cars. There was too many drivers that died driving his cars for him. But let's not take away from the incredible genius that was Colin Chapman. Let me just check on a couple of other facts here that I want to share with you. So the other thing that's really interesting and is that Colin Chapman built a kit car, the Lotus 7. And lots of people bought that thing. About 2,500 of those things were sold, and they still continue to be sold today under the brand name Caterham. Caterham cars bought the Lotus 7 design from Lotus and continue to make those kit cars today. So if you go up and go online and look up the Lotus 7, and then it'll show you in there Caterham cars, and you can buy yourself a little kit car. They'll ship it to you. You got to build it in your garage and then turn around and drive it. Some of them are street legal, some of them are not. The high performance ones are not street legal, but you can still buy a street legal Lotus 7, which is, think about that. That car was, I remember as a kid, it was incredible. I think probably 63, 64, he started putting those out, and then later came the Elite and the Elan. Actually, no, the Elite came before that because Jim Clark drove an Elite. Then he bought an Elan, and then he sent it to Bentley Cars, to the coach building people, to have them completely gut the interior, rebuild it, and make it a really nice, comfortable car. So it was a one-of a car that Jim Clark had built. If you look at the Lotus Elite and the Lotus Elan, and you look at the design, you're going to think, that looks like a lot like the Austin Healey Sprite and the Austin Healey Bug Eye Sprite. They didn't have bug eyes, but if you look at those two cars, the Elan and the Elite, you'll think, wait, there's a lot of influence there coming from the Austin Healey design. It's like the little Mazda Miata sports car now. If you look at the Austin Healey bug eye Sprite in the beginning, Mazda had the same bug eyes, the little headlamps that stuck up on that car. So it was really interesting. So I encourage you to go out and read all you can about Colin Chapman, because a lot of his ideas and a lot of his brain waves are still in Formula One cars today. A lot of his ideas are still in the cars that you drive today. The 4-valve per cylinder, certainly, it was an idea, as I said, that came about from Lancia, but it was Colin Chapman that perfected it with dual overhead cams. If you look, all of your little cars today, 4-cylinders, 6-cylinders, all have dual overhead cams. That all comes from Colin Chapman. He was in his time a true genius. Now, unfortunately, there's a little cloud at the end of Colin's life, and that is, a lot of people may know or may not know, but Colin Chapman was the design genius behind the DeLorean. Yes, Colin Chapman designed the DeLorean car, and at the time he designed that, Lotus Cars was struggling financially, and of course we all know that it was financial struggles that put DeLorean under. And so there's questions about the finances around the relationship between Lotus and DeLorean and the British government. And that's all I'm going to say about it, because none of this came to light until 8-10 years after Colin died. And so I don't want to sully his reputation by saying that he did questionable things. I will say that it is out there in the news media that some of the stuff that Colin did from a financial perspective, not from a design perspective, the DeLorean was a pretty neat looking little car, but from a financial perspective. And remember, he had a business manager that ran all of his business dealings. It's not like Colin Chapman sat down and started thinking all this stuff up. But anyway, that's our history for this week's podcast. I encourage you to go out and look up and read as much as you can about Colin Chapman and the incredible life that he lived. Okay, Formula One fans, it is Friday, September the 2nd, and practice 1 has just finished and practice 2 is just about to start. So the surprises coming out of practice 1 is that Mercedes is 1 and 2, and then there's the McLarens coming right after that, and one of the Ferraris. So rather surprising there that Mercedes has managed to make quite a nice improvement over last week. We'll see if it holds up into practice 2 and then practice 3 tomorrow with qualifying. The other surprise is, the biggest surprise is Max Verstappen has had to quit practice due to transmission problems. So Verstappen has ended practice 1 with really no time. He's down in 19th or 20th place. The other surprise, though, is that Sergio Perez is also down there below the 10th place. He's struggling as well. So it looks like Red Bull may be struggling a little bit this morning to find the grip on the track, because usually lack of pace means that the cars are not gripping the track properly. So it's going to be interesting to see what goes on in practice 2, which is about to start in about 2 or 3 minutes, which is why I've started this the podcast now, so I can bring that live to you. Some interesting happenings. So let's take a look and see just exactly how this practice 2 is going to unfold for us. Okay, so practice 2 has just got underway, and with the first 2 or 3 laps down, the good news is Max Verstappen is out on the track and is taking part in practice 2. They did put a new transmission into his car, so good work by the mechanics. And as the British commentators are saying on the TV, no lunch today for the British mechanics because they were busy putting a new transmission in Verstappen's car. After the first few laps of practice, Verstappen is leading by about 0.08 of a second over the second place guy, which is Carlos Sainz from Ferrari. You know, Carlos Sainz, out of the Ferrari drivers, he's supposed to be the number 2 driver, but he has certainly been, you know, this last few weeks, actually, probably the last 2 months, he has been like he's the number 1 driver. He's won races. He's been consistently in the pole position or second place to the pole position. He's finished consistently in the top 3 or 4 places. So he's getting podium finishes. And the number 1 driver, Charles Leclerc, just seemed, after a great start of the season, just doesn't seem able to make it happen. So it's really, really interesting to see. The other nice thing that's come out of this first few laps is that Lando Norris has had a good time. So, you know, the beginning laps, we've got Verstappen, we've got Carlos Sainz, George Russell, Lando Norris, and Lewis Hamilton. So that's the top five after the early stages. But it's really interesting. Great work there by Lando Norris in the McLaren. His teammate Ricciardo is down around the 12th or 13th place. But, you know, it's very early in practice too. A lot of things are going to change and a lot of things are going to happen. So we're about halfway through practice 2, and Verstappen has actually fallen back quite a bit. He's now in 5th place. The top 5 guys are the Mercedes, Lando Norris, and I said the Mercedes, one of the Mercedes, Russell is up there, but Hamilton has dropped back a little bit. But you know what? I'm watching these cars and I'm thinking by the end of this practice session, we may just see that the Ferraris and the Mercedes and the McLarens are going to kind of rule this day. It's really, really interesting to see. But, you know, it's early, and the Red Bull team are really, really good at preparing their cars. And I would expect that if Verstappen doesn't make pole tomorrow, he's going to be in the 2nd or 3rd position. And actually 2nd might be a better place to start on this track over the pole position. Remember, Verstappen did win this race last year, and as I just said in my history piece on Colin Chapman, the only guy to win this race 4 times is Jim Clark, which is really, really interesting when you think about all of the drivers and all of the years. It's 1965, so what is that? It's very nearly 50 years, and no one has managed to win this race more than 4 times. Or even 4 times, because no one has even equaled Jim Clark's record yet. So we don't have much time left here in practice 2. Really strange thing has happened to Bottas. He's slipped all the way back down to 18th. I don't know. I guess those guys are really having a hard time struggling setting up his car to where it really sticks. He's over 2 seconds behind, and that, you know, at this level, that's a lot. You know, the Williams cars and even the Alfa Scuderies, the Scuderia cars, you'd expect you know, to be struggling. But Alfa Romeo is a pretty strong team. They're actually in 3rd place in the Constructors' Championship, so it's really surprising to find them down there. You know, like I say, there's plenty of time. They've got all free practice tomorrow, and then they've got qualifying. Of course, by qualifying, you know, you'd expect Bottas to be up there in Q3 because last week was the first time that he'd missed a Q3 in his entire career. So we've got to keep our fingers crossed and hope that. Hope that he will pull through and make it up. Other than that, you know, all the cars are in the positions you'd expect them to be. Certainly Ferrari's out there. Mercedes is a surprise this week. They're up there qualifying in pretty decent positions. They did fall back for a while, but you can see that they're getting their act together as practice goes along, and they're dialing those cars in. Okay, we've just... Oh no, I think we're going to get a red flag now because Yuki Tsunoda has just spun off and gone into the gravel. We've got about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes left in Q2 practice, but I don't see them getting that car out of there and off the track in any attempt to get practice going again. So I think we'll just call this an end for free practice 2 for today. And we better say thank you to another one of our sponsors. And let's say thank you to CloudHub. You know, CloudHub is a perfect alternative to Facebook. And CloudHub, you're not going to be censored. You're not going to be taken down because the folks at CloudHub don't like what you're saying or don't agree with what you're saying. The other big thing about CloudHub is they don't collect any of your data. So you can go on there and know that they're not collecting all of your data to send off and get information to send you targeted advertising and things like that. Do look for advertising to come to their platform soon. They are putting that in. The other nice thing that CloutHub is putting in, which Facebook doesn't have, I don't know of any other social media site that has this, but if you've got friends that only speak, say, Dutch or Italian or Mexican or Portuguese, and you only speak English, you can talk to them in your native language, and they'll be able to talk back to you in their native language, and it'll be translated automatically for you. So your Dutch friends can talk to you in their native language, and you will see it in English. And conversely, when you talk to them in Dutch, they will see that in Dutch. So great things are happening at CloutHub. So please, take the time, go out to club, open up yourself an event, or get a channel out there, get your news, do all your social media that you like to do on a day-to-day basis at CloutHub. That is clouthub.com. Again, clouthub.com. Greetings, Formula One fans, and welcome. It is September the 3rd, and it is free practice number 3, and of course qualifying for pole position today. Let's first start by thanking our sponsors. The first sponsor we'd like to thank today is Moms for Liberty. You know, back 20 years ago, teachers used to get all upset because they said parents weren't involved enough. And they're always trying to get the parents involved with their child's education. That has all changed. Today, the teachers don't want the parents involved with the kids' education, because the teachers want to have full scope, not over what they learn in math and English and science and those things. No, they have their own social agenda that they want to push off on the kids today, transgender and LGBTQ and things like that. And certainly all those guys need to be recognized, and they need to be respected, but certainly not at kindergarten and middle school ages. Moms for Liberty is a group of folks out of Miami that is building chapters all over the country to get parents more involved with the school boards, not with the children, but with the school boards, and get the people on those school boards that will start getting our kids focused again on math and English and science and all those things, rather than gender identity and other social issues. So please go to momsforliberty.com. That is momsforliberty.com, and create a chapter in your own neighborhood, or join a chapter that's in your neighborhood, and let's get the parents more involved and get the school board members in there that will balance out the education for our children. So let's get into practice number 3. Of course, it's over. It finished about 2 hours ago, a little more, but not a lot of surprises in there, other than that the Mercedes did very well, and so it was Leclerc, Russell, Verstappen, Norris, and Carlos Sainz at the end of the day that were leading. I say leading, that had the best times for the morning. The other field was kind of mixed like it was yesterday, but it's going to be very interesting to see if Verstappen can drop. He probably needs to drop about 0.8 of a second from his free practice time to be able to take pole position today. It's about to start in about 5 minutes, so we'll be looking for that and really watching to see what the times are. This is a very different track than last week, because it's about a mile shorter, and on top of that, it's got a lot of really interesting turns. It has 14 turns. And turn 3 actually has an 18-degree bank on it. So when those cars come off out of turn 3, they are really flying, and they get catapulted out of the corner and up a hill. The other thing today is the temperatures are quite warm. So for the Netherlands, it's 78 degrees, which having lived in that part of the world all my childhood and young adulthood, that's quite warm. Mostly the folks will be out to the beach, but they're expecting a total number of people at the race this weekend to be over 300,000. And of course, on TV, there'll be about 108 million worldwide watching these races. And so let's hope that we have a good race tomorrow. And qualifying is just about to kick off, so let's take a look and see where the cars are going to end up here. We're about right now. We're kicking off on the first laps. The cars are out. It's interestingly enough, Verstappen is out there first with Perez. Normally that guy sits back and waits a while till all the other cars get out there, but he's decided that today he wants to be out front of this, and off he goes. So the first laps have just been completed, and no surprise, Max Verstappen is leading the field right now by about 0.6 of 1 second. Correction, that's 0.8 of 1 second over his teammate Sergio Perez. Now it's early going, and I don't expect those times to hold up, especially the Ferraris are looking good, and from the practice sessions, of course, Mercedes are also looking quite quick today. So let's see how this practice session unfolds as we go in here now, and we'll watch a few more laps and see what the qualifying times are coming out in just about 4 or 5 minutes. So the second set of lap times are coming in now, and when I say the second set of laps, they've probably they do what they call their out lap, which is to warm the tires up and get the car ready for the fast laps. But on the second set of numbers we're seeing come out now, Verstappen is still at the top, but not strange enough, because of the practice times, Mercedes is in second and third, and Carlos Sainz and then Perez. So Leclerc is still hanging back and needs to find a way to make his car quicker, which I'm sure over the course of these next 30 minutes, 40 minutes, that the total time is taken up for the qualifying sessions rather, then don't be surprised to see Charles Leclerc come out of here. Like I said, he is a very, very talented driver. He's had some bad luck and he's made some silly mistakes, but you can't take away the fact that Leclerc is one talented driver. Okay, with just 5 minutes left in Q1, some interesting things are taking shape. We do have, as I suspected, Charles Leclerc now coming in with a pretty fast time, right behind Max Verstappen in second place, and he is very close. He is less than 2/100ths of a second behind Verstappen, and then comes Russell, Hamilton, Sergio Perez, and in a strange turn of events, Danny Ricciardo has dropped all the way back to 17th. At one time, Danny Ricciardo was up in 6th place. So really, really interesting. And if he can't do something, in the next 2 or 3 minutes, he's got time for maybe one more outlap and then one more good go at getting a good lap. Danny Ricciardo is not going to make it out of Q1, which would be a real surprise, because those McLaren teams have looked strong through the time trials or practice sessions, not time trials, but they have looked very strong through the practice sessions. So that's really surprising to see Danny Ricciardo possibly not making it out of the Q1 session. Okay, so Q1 has just ended, and the folks at the top didn't change much. But what's really surprising to see, for the second week in a row now, Bottas has failed to make it out of Q1. I don't know what is going on with those Alfa Romeo cars, because neither one of the Alfa Romeos are going to make it out of Q1. So something's got to be really amiss there. So Bottas hasn't made it. Magnussen has not made it. Strangely, Mick Schumacher has made it. Very, very interesting. So we got Ricciardo, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, was not going to make it. Vettel has not made it. And of course, Latifi has not made it. I don't think I've ever seen a race where Latifi has made it out of Q1. So we're going to wait here for about 5 to 10 minutes while the cars go back into the pits. They make adjustments based on the Q1 ride, so that we got 15 cars left that are going to try in Q2. And then after Q2, we whittle it down to 10 cars, and so the top 10 cars then race it out for the pole position, and second and third and fourth and fifth and so on, all the way down through 10th place. So the other surprise, I guess, that coming out of Q1 is that Lance Stroll and the Aston Martin is also looking very strong and looking very good. The Aston Martin all the way through practice sessions was looking good. So they've made some adjustments to that car, and Lance Stroll is figuring out how to drive that car along with his teammate Vettel. But as we just noted, Vettel did not make it out of Q1, so that's kind of strange. But Lance Stroll is up there and doing quite nicely. And also, of course, is our friend Alex Albon from the Williams team. Where all of a sudden Williams has found this pace, and Alex Albon has also found the pace to bring that car up. I wouldn't be surprised to see him make it out of Q2 and into Q3 and at least make it in the top 10 for tomorrow's starting lineup. So we got ready to start Q2, and it's been delayed now. In fact, it's been red flagged because some idiot in the stand decided that they'd take some flare and throw it down onto the track. And if you haven't seen this, especially in the Netherlands now, where it's kind of Max Verstappen's home course, and of course they have these orange flares that they send off, and it puts this orange smoke out into the sky and the atmosphere. It just looks terrible, and apparently it smells terrible. But some idiot just threw one onto the track, which is not very good. One other problem they have in this track here in Zandvoort is the pigeons. The pigeons, in fact, the cameras are showing pictures of the pigeons right now, pecking away on the side of the track, feeding. So kind of really interesting. But and the cars go by and the pigeons don't move. The cars don't bother the pigeons at all. But of course, with a flare in the middle of the track, then they couldn't start. So 3 to 4 minute wait, maybe a little longer, while the flare burns itself out and they get the empty canister off the track. And of course, they'll find the idiot that threw that onto the track, and he'll be thrown out of not just the qualifying session now, but he will be banned from the race tomorrow. And they've just actually put on the TV systems and the public address system that if any spectators caught with flares and throwing them onto the track, they will be thrown out and banned from coming to the race for life. So that's what you need to do, because you cannot have these cars flying around the track at nearly 200 miles an hour and then some idiot throws a flare canister onto the track. That would be a disaster if that were to happen at those kinds of speeds. Okay, so we've now got some of the first lap times coming in. The first laps of Q2 are completed, and no surprise, Max Verstappen is still at the top. He's followed up there with his teammate Perez. Lance Stroll and Aston Martin are really putting in some good times today. So we've got Lance Stroll with George Russell and Lewis Hamilton there. What the surprise coming in here is that neither one of the Ferraris are up there in the top 5. But this is just the first lap, so I wouldn't read anything into that. I think that the Ferraris are looking good today, and so are the Mercedes. I mean, the Mercedes have found speed at this track, and they are doing extremely well. But I would still expect that the way things are going, that it's going to be Red Bull, Mercedes, and Ferrari up there in the top 5 to 8 cars. Certainly looks like Lance Stroll, and now Lando Norris has just turned in his time, and he's up there in the top 3 or 4 now as well. So don't be surprised to see these things change over the next 10 minutes, but don't be surprised at the end if it isn't Red Bull and Ferrari, and then trailing by Mercedes, then Aston Martin, McLaren, and the others falling off below. But don't be surprised to find them in that order, because these two teams, Red Bull and Ferrari, have been extremely strong all year. Got to give Mercedes credit. Over the last 4 or 5 races, they've started to come up. They've actually had a couple of podium finishes, so it would be very surprising not to see a Mercedes in the top 5. Okay, so 2 minutes left in the Q2 session, and I guess the big surprise here is that the Ferraris are down in 7th and 9th. Don't ask me what's happened to those guys right now, Lance Stroll is up there in third right now. So just an amazing day for the Aston Martin, and of course Max Verstappen is still there, but we still got one more. So we got right now they're in and out what we call the outlap, and we got one more session to go in Q2, and we'll see what the final running order is. But it's really surprising to see the Ferraris fall off that much, especially at the beginning of Q2 and the end of Q1. They were doing extremely well. So let's just wait and see what happens. I'm sure this running order is going to change. Okay, so Q2 session has just ended, and like I said, don't be surprised to see the running order change. So Carlos Sainz has now got the best time in. He's a few hundredths of a second ahead of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, and Lance Stroll is still up there. So really crazy things are happening right now. But so these folks are safely through to the Q3 session, What's really interesting though, after Max Verstappen had put in his fast time at the very beginning of Q2, he did not come back out to put in another time. He was so confident in that time. You know, once they make it through to the next round, there's not a lot of need to come back out and do another lap, unless of course you know you feel like you need to make some more adjustments to the car to make it even faster. Obviously Red Bull didn't feel that way, so they're quite happy sitting now there at the end of Q2 to be sitting in third place in terms of the running order right now. You know, like I said, don't be surprised to find Ferrari, and I'm still thinking, I don't know why, but I'm still thinking Charles Leclerc could well be up there sitting at the pole position by the end of the day. There's just something about the way his car looks going around the track, that he looks like he's got it under control, and he looks like he can go faster than what he's going. Right now his teammate Carlos Sainz is the one that's leading the pack, but like I said, do not be surprised to see Charles Leclerc come up and take away pole position. I'm predicting that. I'm not always right, but I'm kind of predicting that Leclerc might just snatch pole position away from Verstappen and Carlos Sainz, and really one of the Mercedes. George Russell is looking extremely quick. It's interesting all year. George Russell has really been outdoing or out positioning his teammate Lewis Hamilton all year, either in podiums or in getting onto the pole. I think he was on the pole 2-3 weeks ago. But George Russell is proving that he is a very fast driver. Okay, so we're into Q3 and the first lap times are starting to come in, and no surprise, Charles Leclerc is now leading, and he's a full quarter of a second ahead of Max Verstappen, and then followed by Hamilton, Perez, and Carlos Sainz. But I don't know why it's looked all morning like Charles Leclerc had it, that he had the speed and he just hadn't been putting it in. Well, he just put it in, and like I said, quarter of a second at this stage is a lot, and it's a lot to make up. But it's going to be interesting because Max Verstappen was on used tires when he put in his Q1 time. His Q2 time. So now he's going to go back into the pits, and he's going to put on new tires and then come up. Now, the difference in speed, the new tires should give him about a half a second. So if that holds up and it comes out to be true, Max Verstappen might just snatch pole away from Charles Leclerc by about a quarter of a second, but we'll see. Right now he's leading by nearly a quarter of a second, but if we take the tire things into consideration, then Verstappen could end up snatching pole by about quarter of a second. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens. The rest of the field is kind of shaping up the way that we would expect it. One thing that's really interesting to note is that right now, Lance Stroll, who had an amazing Q2 session and Q1, has still not come out of the pits for his Q3 session. So it's going to be interesting to see when he comes out. It's with all the other 9 cars already having completed their outlap and their first time lap. It's interesting that the Aston Martin with Lance Stroll is still stuck in the pits. So we're getting down to crunch time. We're getting down to about 2 minutes before the drivers will have their last outlap, and then that will be the fastest lap coming in. And that running order hasn't really changed much, mostly because the cars have been in the pits making final adjustments and getting things ready. But it's still Charles Leclerc ahead of Max Verstappen, and then Lewis Hamilton and Perez and Carlos Sainz. So it's going to be a really, really interesting next 2 or 3 minutes here, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this ends up. I'm still going to predict that Leclerc is going to hold on and keep that pole position. And the final laps are just coming in, and surprise, surprise, Max Verstappen has just pulled in by 0.19 of a second faster than Leclerc's old time. So Leclerc still has a time to make it up. He is about 30 to 40 seconds away from finishing his lap. Hamilton right now is coming in at 3rd, but right now you've got Leclerc first and then Verstappen. Let me rephrase that. You've got Verstappen and then Leclerc and then Hamilton, but remember, Leclerc hasn't come in. He's going to come in about 15 seconds, so we'll keep watching. This is going to be incredibly close, incredibly close. So there's going to be, Leclerc has just had a terrible, just showing up, he's had a terrible middle section, so unless he can find at least another 3 to 4 hundredths of a second here in this final sector, he is not going to be in pole position. And in fact, we'll just give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and he is not. He has not made up any time on his last time. So Max Verstappen has snatched pole position away from Charles Leclerc by 0.019 of a second, and that has got to be one of the closest times in history for pole position differences. That is incredible. Hamilton is 3rd, and oh no, they've just hit a red flag. A red flag has just been thrown. Perez has spun out. He was running in 4th position. So, sorry, 5th position. So he is spun out. So those top 5 positions are not going to change. He will have his old lap time. And all those drivers behind him, because the red flag is out, their times can't change either. So an incredible finish to qualifying. Max Verstappen is on pole. So as qualifying ends, as I said, Max Verstappen is on pole. Charles Leclerc is on 3rd. Going to be a really interesting start to the race tomorrow. Can't wait for that to happen. And of course, I'll be bringing it to you live here on the Formula One News Hour. And we'll post this podcast right after it's finished. So looking forward, we've done a much better job this week of keeping the time down to a Formula One News Hour. Last week, which was our first one, we had a few things that we had to learn, and I think we did a good job of learning. I want to thank another one of our sponsors. It's Give, Send, Go. You know, folks, you can't control what's going to happen to you in life and to your friends and your family. But you know, you can control what crowdfunding source that you go to use in the event that you need help, outside help from different folks. And you need somewhere that's simple and easy to use, somewhere that doesn't have any kind of speech concerns, free speech concerns, don't care about your religion, don't care about your politics, they don't do any censoring or anything like that. You want somewhere where you can go and your friends can go and other folks that are going to help you can go without worrying about whether or not you're going to get the money because those running the crowdfunding site don't like what you're saying, or don't like who you are as a person, or don't like, you know, for whatever reason, they just don't like. And so they They just think they're all powerful and start censoring. Not Give, Send, Go. Give, Send, Go will make sure that they put out the right words and get the right things to you, make it as easy as possible for you and your friends to get out there and raise those needed dollars that you need. So when you've got a choice in crowdfunding, so go ahead and choose Give, Send, Go. That's givesendgo.com, givesendgo.com. Good morning, race fans. This is your Formula One News Hour, and I am Jonathan Steele, your host, and we are here for the start of the Dutch Grand Prix out of Zandvoort, the Netherlands. And everything looks great this morning. The weather is a little chillier than it was during the practice session and qualifying, and there's a slight mist over the track as well, so probably going to favor the Mercedes cars, I'm thinking, for that. Those Red Bull cars like the track to be a little warmer than it is right now, but overall I don't think the weather is going to have that big a difference, but like I say, if it's going to help anybody, it could well be the Mercedes. So this portion of the Formula One News Hour is brought to you by El American. Everyone has their choice in what news channels to watch and where they get their news, and I would advise everyone to get their news from El American. El American is one of the only TV stations that broadcasts simultaneously in both English and Spanish. So for all you Formula One Spanish-speaking folks out there, and I know there's a lot of you, give El American your business and tune in and watch their news and their features and everything else that you need to get all of your information about what's going on in the world. A lot of those places are just going to give you your news as opinions and not news, but get it from El American. That is elamerican.com. elamerican.com. Just a quick note, I may from time to time have a little cough or two here. There's nothing wrong with me. I live in a part of the world where we suffer from allergies now and then, and we've had a lot of rain of late, so the mold is fairly high, so excuse me if every now and then you catch me coughing. But anyway, the race is about to get underway. They're about to start the formation lap. And the starting grid, as I pointed out yesterday, begins with Max Verstappen on pole position, Charles Leclerc is second, then comes the Mercedes, and then comes Lando Norris, and after that Sergio Perez. It's going to be interesting to see how Perez does today. He struggled a little bit this weekend, but race day is always very different, so we're just going to have to wait and see how things play out. So as we get ready to come down for the end of the formation lap, all the cars will set up again and we will be ready to go in just a few moments. And they're off, and it is Max Verstappen. He has got all the way across the track. He has backtracked across to the other side, and he is in front of Charles Leclerc, and they're into the first corner, and oh no, what is going on with Lewis Hamilton these days? He just nearly took out the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz there. They actually touched, so anyway, they got themselves straightened up okay, and they are on their way, and so everybody's got through the first corner fairly unscathed, except, as I say, for Lewis Hamilton touching into Carlos Sainz there. As they make their way out and through the end of the first lap, it is going to be Max Verstappen leading with Charles Leclerc in second place, and then the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and George Russell coming in close behind, and Sergio Perez is now into fifth place. He has taken away fifth place from Lando Norris. And oh look, no, we're into the second lap now, and just as the second lap is beginning, Magnussen has totally lost it, and he has totally spun off. He's careened off into the wall, and it looks like, though, he's going to be able to keep going. My goodness, he has kept going, and it is just amazing that more damage wasn't done to that car, but everything looks okay, and he is now, of course, completely at the back of the pack. He is even behind Nicholas Latifi, and that's hard to do. So we're coming up into lap 5 now, and the order is being set still with Max Verstappen out in front, and all the other cars, Mercedes and Ferrari trailing behind. Looks like the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz is dropping back a little bit. I don't know if he's having issues or if he's just struggling a little bit with the car sticking to the road given the cold temperatures. But of real interest is Esteban Ocon has done a really good job of climbing up. He's climbed up 5 places and now is into 9th place, which is very, very impressive for Esteban Ocon driving for the Alpine team there. So anyway, it looks like that the running order is starting to settle in. We're on most of the drivers are on soft tires. So we're looking at probably a 2 or a 3 stop race. I would imagine that after when they change out the soft tires, some are going to go to the hard tires and try and make it through to the end of the race, and others are going to go to the medium and then go and pull in for soft tires at the end of the race. It just depends when they're going to change these tires out. Obviously, we've got the folks that have started on the medium tires, and that includes both Mercedes, by the way. They will be able to go at least nearly to halfway point in the race before they would stop, if that they would have to. But they may elect to stop, maybe at lap 30, lap 35, and move to the hard tires, and then they can make it all the way through to the end of the race on the hard tires. But most folks, I'm going to be pretty sure, with the exception of Mercedes, are looking at a 2-stop strategy. Certainly all those that are on soft tires right now, which includes Max Verstappen, are going to be on a 2-stop strategy. This could, with the Mercedes having a 1-stop strategy, this could make the end of the race getting really exciting. We could be looking at Max Verstappen having to pass the Mercedes at the end of the race to take back that first place, because he will lose positions when he does his second stop. His first stop, he's going to lose maybe 4 or 5 seconds because he's building up quite a lead. And he'll take back those positions quite easily on the newer tires. But as the Mercedes only make 1 stop, they're going to have a good 20 to 25 second lead on him. I should say the other way around. He will have a good 20-25 second lead, but remember, it takes 19 seconds for the pit stop, so and to change those tires. So Max Verstappen, the longer they leave him out there after his first tire change, then it's going to be a real strategy game and seeing how it pans out. Obviously, this year to date, the Red Bull team has won the strategy battle on every race. They've got an incredible strategist, and so we don't look for her to make mistakes like the Mercedes and the Ferraris have been doing, because she just has a history of not doing that. So we're on lap 16, and we're going to see some of the cars coming in now for the tire changes. In fact, a couple of them have already done that. Excuse me, and it should be noted that the ones that have come in are from the back of the field, and they've all gone onto the hard compound tire. So I'm sure the teams of Mercedes and Red Bull are going to watch those cars for a few laps before they decide to bring their drivers in and change tires. Of course, Mercedes are on the medium compound anyway, so they're still a good 10 to 15 laps away from having to make a tire change. So it's really the Red Bull and Ferrari teams that are going to be watching these hard compound tires on this track and see how they fare. I think in particular they'll be watching the McLaren cars, just because the McLaren drivers are really good drivers, and they're faster cars. They're not doing that great today. Neither is Aston Martin. They're kind of hanging back there, but the Alpines are doing very well, and of course the Alfa Romeo is not doing too badly, and it's nice to see Alex Albon is doing quite well in the Williams car. He's up at position number 12 right now. So we'll just have to see. But look, it looks like now that the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz is coming in for tires. So let's watch and see how this pans out for Carlos Sainz as he pulls in, and now he's pulling up to stop. And coming in right behind him is the Red Bull of Sergio Perez. So this is going to be really interesting. Now something's gone wrong, but they've got a problem with the left rear tire of Carlos Sainz. Perez is pulling it. Oh, no. So Perez has just run over the air gun for tightening the wheel nuts on the Ferrari car. So that's going to be a real problem. Now they've just got Carlos Sainz away. That was a little over a 12-second. Yes, 12-second stop there for Carlos Sainz. So that's going to drop him back 3-4 places. You can't take more than 2.5 seconds to change out the 4 tires and get going. Again, as was the case in Sergio Perez, he had 2.4 seconds. But somebody's going to get a penalty for that wheel nut gun being left out there in such a place that Sergio Perez was forced to run over it. So again, Ferrari just shooting themselves in the foot time and time again. And it's always the little things, but remember, it's all the little things. As we used to say, I used to be in the oil industry, and we used to say in the oil industry, all tiny issues turn out to be disasters. And so, as you can see, a small problem not having, they didn't have the wheel out. If you can believe that, they did not have the tire out in time to change it for Carlos Sainz. So, just an absolutely unforgivable mistake. Somebody's got the responsibility of carrying the left rear wheel out and somehow missed it. But, this is about training and processes and training and processes. So these guys have really, really got to get it together. They've got 2 really good cars and 2 really good drivers. Unfortunately, the team is letting them down. So we're up to lap 19, and Max Verstappen has just come in for his first tire change, and he has gone on to the mediums. So they're definitely now into a 2-stop strategy, because those medium tires are not good enough to see him through the end of the race. So for sure Red Bull's on a 2-stop, and so by the way is Ferrari. They're both on a 2-stop strategy. So that's put the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton and Charles Russell into the 1st and 2nd place, and now Verstappen has dropped back into 3rd place. But don't look for it to be too long from now before Verstappen is back into 2nd place and then 1st place. I would look for 2nd place to come in about 4 to 5 laps from now. He's a little over 3 seconds down on George Russell in 2nd place. So I think you can look for him catching up Russell and taking back 2nd place in about 4 to 5 laps. 3.5 to catch him, and then maybe lap 4, lap 5 to pass him and take back 2nd place, which would put him about 2.5 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. So then it would only be a matter of maybe 2 to 3 laps before he would be in a position to take back 1st place. What could happen before then is that Hamilton will be getting up to around lap 30, lap 32 or 33 by that time. So it could be that that Mercedes bring Hamilton in for new tires at that stage. They'll obviously be putting him onto the hard compound tire to finish the race. There's 72 laps in this race, so at the stage they're at now, they're coming up on about a third. They'll be about a third of the way through in another 2 to 3 laps. And so that'll give them, a third on the medium tires, and then 2/3 on the hard tires, and they should last him all the way through the end, barring something going wrong. A yellow car coming out, a safety cars or something like that. But right now everything looks pretty good. It's really going to be interesting, because Verstappen's going to have to come back in about 30 laps. So that will be around lap 50, around lap 55, and he's going to have to get another set of tires. Now, obviously, he's going to be go onto the soft compound tires, and so with maybe say 15, 18 laps to go, he could find himself a good 5 to 8 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton, and so he'd have to make up that time against Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis Hamilton is not going to have to stop again, and you're going to have to assume that between now and then Verstappen's going to put up a 10 to 15, maybe even 20-second gap between himself and Hamilton, and in that time when he pits again, he's going to lose. And I'm just seeing now on the TV that they're saying the average stop time now is around 18 seconds. So he's going to come out behind Lewis Hamilton, and it's just going to depend on when they pit him. You know, I think the later they leave it, then the worse it's going to be for Verstappen. So, you know, the early predictions that I made was that this could be a 1-2 Mercedes finish. And looking at the way the strategies are working right now, Mercedes might well have just done a really good job of strategizing and pulling out a win here for their team. So we've had a fairly uneventful last 20 laps, and as I predicted, of course, Max Verstappen took the lead back, and now we're on lap 43, and it's Verstappen, Hamilton, Russell, Leclerc, and then Perez is your top five. Verstappen has opened quite a sizable lead. He's got about a 15-second lead on Lewis Hamilton right now, but he has not stopped yet for his second set of tires. And that, you know, the longer he goes, then you know, the bigger the possibility is that he won't be able to make up that time and take the lead back from Hamilton, assuming nothing goes wrong here. And you know, it's been the last 20 laps have been pretty uneventful. We've had a few of the cars swapping positions. Our friends in the Williams team is still doing quite well. Carlos Sainz, you know, he lost a tremendous amount of time on that tire change. And you know, I'm sure that he's going to get hit with a penalty at the end of the race because of that air gun being left there on the track, so that Sergio Perez could run over it. I don't know if I'd like to be in Hannah Smith's shoes right now. She's the strategist for Red Bull, but you know, she's shown that she knows how to call these races. So you know, anything could happen. But right now we've had a fairly uneventful last 20 laps, and things are just, oh no. So Yuki Tsunoda has just spun out. This could well play into Max Verstappen's hands. This is very interesting. We have a yellow caution out. It looks like he's stopped. No, he's moving the car. It looks like he may be able to drive that car on. So we have a virtual yellow. We do not have a yellow safety car. We just have a virtual yellow. Yuki Tsunoda has managed to get that car up and going and getting back up to speed again. I say up to speed. It looks like something may be wrong with that car, or maybe a tire went down on him or something, because anyway, he's going to make it back around and get into the pits and get going again. And in fact, he's pulled off onto pit road, and they're going to bring him down and put him on a new set of tires, and then we'll see how things go from there. So Yuki Tsunoda is back out onto the track with a new set of tires, and he is off. We're at about lap 50, and Verstappen's got about a 15-16 second lead on Lewis Hamilton and George Russell, with Charles Leclerc following behind that, and it looks like Norris is behind that in fifth place. So anyway, the strategist has got to be thinking. It's really interesting that we didn't get a full virtual car there, but what is going on now? Yuki Tsunoda has just pulled over and stopped his car. What? Why would they do that? Why would they have him come out of the thing? He was radioing in. He could hear something was not right with the rear end, and so the engineers just told him to stop. So really interesting, really interesting. I'm sure that if he had to have felt something, unless it was a flat tire and he couldn't really feel, but he had to have felt something, and that rear end was not right before he went into the pits to change out those tires. So is this going to bring out a safety car? It could he's parked off close to where they can pull out. So it certainly brought out the virtual safety car. So all cars have to hold positions exactly where they are, reduce speed to half speed, and just hold position. So Verstappen is going to maintain his 15 second. Actually, it's dropped to about 12 seconds now. So, but he's going to maintain that. But at some point, Hannah Smith is going to have to pull him in and get tires, because now by the time this virtual safety car and to get that Yuki Tsunoda car out of the way, then it's going to be all the way probably down to 10-12 seconds. And that means that Verstappen would come out at 8 seconds behind Lewis Hamilton and George Russell. And you'd have to think that he'd have to get by George Russell and then try and get by Lewis Hamilton, which is not going to be an easy task at all. So let's see, we've got, all right, so they're lifting the virtual safety car and they're going back to racing. Okay, so off we go again, and so we've still got Verstappen in the lead. Let's see if he can open up a little bit of a gap there, because it looks like that he's going to need a few more seconds, if possible, to hold off the Mercedes challenge. And right now, barring another safety car or something like that, right now I don't see a way that Max Verstappen can win this race, because I think even with new tires on the soft tires, he's only going to make up half to 3/4 of a second per lap on George Russell and Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell is going to do the good teammate part and hold Verstappen up as much as he can. So it could well be that that Lewis Hamilton is going to win this race with about 1 to 2 seconds to spare. That, looking at the way things are running right now, that's the way it looks like it's going to be. Okay, we're coming up here on lap 55, and things have not changed that much. Verstappen has not been able to open up any more of a lead, so there's about a 10-12 second gap between Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton. So if Verstappen is going to win this race, he is going to have to drive like he's never driven before, because I just don't see him having enough. We've got, what do we got left in this race? We've got 17 laps left. So let's say he makes up half a second. So they pull him in right now. That means he'd need 16 laps to be able to pull even with Lewis Hamilton. And I just, oh no. Valtteri Bottas has come down the straightaway and pulled over to stop. Valtteri Bottas is out of this race, and he is on the side of the track at the far end of the straightaway. So this will pull out a safety car. There's no way they're going to get that car off the track without coming down the track, coming down pit lane with a truck and picking that car up. So we are going to have a safety car. And this could not have played better into Max Verstappen's hands, because now instead of losing 18 seconds under normal race conditions, under a yellow car, he'll pull in, he'll lose maybe he may even pit and come right back out again in the lead. This is amazing. So what I would expect here is that Mercedes are going to do what Verstappen. In fact, Verstappen is pulling into the pit lane right now. He is going down pit lane. They're out with his tires. He's going to change tires. Lewis Hamilton has gone right on by, but look at this. George Russell is also coming down pit lane for a set of tires. Why are they not pulling in Lewis Hamilton? This is crazy. Yes, they could both end up behind Verstappen, but they could both be on soft tires, and they could both have equal cars. The way this is shaping up is Lewis Hamilton is going to have tires that are close to right at let's say 40, about 32, 34 laps again, and they're on the hard tire, so he's not going to have anywhere near the grip that Max Verstappen is going to have on these soft tires. This is, and in fact, as they made the turn now, Max Verstappen will come out ahead of Lewis Hamilton, and George Russell will come in behind and just in front of Charles. No, in fact, he's not. George Russell is going to come in behind Charles Leclerc. So we've got Verstappen. No, sorry, we have we have Verstappen, we have Hamilton, we have Leclerc, and then Russell. So very, very interesting makeup here. Who is making the strategy calls for Mercedes? And you've got to give Hannah Smith her credit here. As soon as she saw that, she had Max Verstappen on the radio straight away. Box, box, box. Which is what the term they use for pulling them into the pits, and they had him in and got those tires off and got him back on again, before Hamilton managed to make it back around and get back into first place. So going to end, whichever way this is going to end now, which I don't think, it'll be very difficult for Lewis Hamilton to even hang on to second place, because his teammate has new tires, has new soft tires, and Charles Leclerc, who was also on a two-stop strategy, stopped before the safety car came out, but he's on much newer tires. So it's good if Lewis Hamilton can even hang on to being in the top 5. I would be very surprised on those tires. Somebody and I'm about to say somebody at Mercedes made a huge mistake here, and I'm not the only one. Lewis Hamilton, of course, they don't show all of the vulgar language that's going on TV, but he is one unhappy puppy, and quite rightfully so. That is the blunder of blunders. Whoever made that call, I don't know why. Remember, this is what happened to Lewis Hamilton at Abu Dhabi. This is how he lost the World Championship race. Hannah Smith made this incredible call and pulled Verstappen in as soon as that yellow safety car came out and had him on soft tires, and that's what won the race. And here we've got it again, and Lewis Hamilton is just fuming. He is just absolutely fuming. So we are coming up with just 4 laps to go, and George Russell has passed Lewis Hamilton for second place, and Lewis Hamilton is just about to be passed again by Charles Leclerc. So it looks like this race is going to finish Verstappen, Russell, Leclerc, Hamilton, and Perez. That's about the way it's going to end, if in fact Hamilton can even stop Perez from getting past. But the way it's looking right now is that's going to be the finishing order. And what else can we say? A great day for the Red Bull strategist. A really poor day for Ferrari and Mercedes. It was such a promising day. Actually, it was a really good race for Mercedes all the way up until about lap 55, when that safety car came out, and they did not pull Lewis Hamilton in. In some ways I can see why they were doing it, but then why pull in George Russell? Because at least George Russell would have been a buffer between Verstappen and Hamilton. But they pulled Russell. Actually, I should say Russell pulled himself in. He just said, I'm coming in, we're going to soft tires. So Russell kind of made that decision for himself. Hamilton, I guess, could have done the same thing, but Hamilton, much the team player, will, and you can't blame him after 7 world championships, most of them driving for Mercedes. You can't help him putting all his trust into the team, but the team certainly did make a blunder today. Ferrari made a blunder today. The other guys that did not have a really good day, of course, is the Haas team. The Alpine team had a very good day. They came up in the top 10, so they had a good day. Lando Norris had an okay day. And Danny Ricciardo, for whatever reason, he just cannot get out of that bottom 5. The 2 guys, of course, didn't finish, which is Bottas and Yuki Tsunoda. Bottas, what has happened to that poor guy the last couple of races? He just hasn't been in it at all. Not even in the free practice times or in qualifying. He just has not. He's just had 2 really bad weeks in a row. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week. We're going to be in Monza, Italy, and it should be hopefully a good week for Ferrari. This is kind of their home course. So as this Zandvoort is for Max Verstappen, and Monza is for Ferrari. So we should see a spirited fight put up there. But still, really, Ferrari have got to get their act together. They've got to make some changes in some places for these people making these decisions and blunders. This is just amazing. Oh no! So I forgot to mention, poor Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz actually finished the race in 5th place, but they just knocked a 5-second penalty on him for the air gun being left on the track and Sergio Perez running over it. So now that has just dropped Carlos Sainz all the way back down into 7th or 8th place. So it knocked him back about 3 places. So, you know, again, Ferrari they can't win for losing. It's really interesting to watch. It's kind of sad in a way, but anyway, we would hope that you know, they'll get their act together. But at this stage, you know, it's not going to be too many more races. It may even be right here in Austin, Texas, that we can say that Max Verstappen is for sure going to win the Formula One championship again this year, and Red Bull will take back after what 5-6 years, will take back the Constructors' Championship trophy as well. So until next week, I hope everybody has a great rest of the week or beginning of the week coming up. And thank you, and see you next week.